All right, hey everyone, Egman here, and so this is going to be like a weirder video. So two things I want to talk about, and they're mostly with St. Louis, which I am going to this weekend. It is what is it, the 25th of August. So it's really this video is like 3 days before I actually go to it, but whatever, you don't care about that. So two things. One, I'm doing kind of a giveaway. So it's not this entire box. I did buy a box mostly because they just announced that set one they're not printing anymore, and they're like a lot of good staples from here like Kaba, Sensu Bean, like Whist's Coercion, just a bunch of really good cards from this set that are staples. So I bought a box, and if any of you guys see me at the event, just stop me. I don't care. There's like I doubt I will do anything important the entire day besides just play. So unless I'm in a match, like feel free to stop by, say hi to me. I will be 99% sure wearing this shirt, so it's really easy to find me. Don't be intimidated. Just seriously, just come up to me, say hey, I saw your channel, and just give me my free pack. You can just I came here for your free pack. Like you can even just like. If you have friends who don't even watch me or anything, you can just be like, hey, that guy's giving away free packs. Just say you subscribe to him or something. So just do that. I know this is kind of like a really limited event. It's not like the biggest event, but I still wanted to do something. And I kind of wanted to meet people IRL. So I thought that'd be a cool way. And I'd want to take pictures and, see what you open and just do stuff like that. So if you're cool with that, it will cost you a picture or something to get a free pack, but I think that'll be fun and just a cool way to break the ice, right? Just to start a conversation. Like, give me a pack, and then we can start talking about the game. So that's that. It is event only, so sorry for people who don't live in like the Midwest. But like, you get all these cool other events, so don't tell me about privilege. So let's see. And then the other part of this is I kind of want to talk about. There's a couple of like. These are just kind of like mantras or like ideas where if you haven't gone to your first tournament before, or you're kind of stressing out like, oh, what am I going to run? It's not going to be any like really specific advice, but it's kind of just general advice that after going to a couple events, this is my first Dragon Ball Super event, yes, but I've been to like a bunch of like I've done Yu-Gi-Oh before, I've done Hearthstone before, I've done Smash Bros tournaments, I've done just a whole bunch of things, and I just want to share you a couple of words of advice for just trying to make the most of the event. So the first thing and all of these will probably sound really obvious, but I think hearing these out loud kind of helps. So I'm just going to say it. Here we go. Number one, be confident with your list. And what I mean by that is that I see like so many people they play. They most of the time they play one deck and they get really familiar with it, which is good. And then right before their event, they really want to do really well, and so they're like, oh wait, this event that was last weekend, someone topped with this list. Let me change, which I don't play. Let me just scrap all my cards, build this list, and play it. And I'm not saying you won't find success, but if you are playing a deck that you're not very familiar with, and depending on how long the event is, there will be tournament fatigue is something that's is a real thing, and it literally happens to everybody. You can get as much sleep as you want. You'll be round 7 at like 8 o'clock at night, and you're tired, and you will make a misplay, right? Because like if you're playing your own deck and you know this deck in and out, you will not make misplays as often because it's more of an automatic process. You've made the same play hundreds of times, and so you're really confident when you make it, right? Comparatively, if you just start a new deck, you don't know the matchups, you don't know that. Sure, the deck can be really strong, but if you don't know how to play it, you can easily make misplays, and not only will you not place highly, but it will be really frustrating. That will be the big thing. Like, it will kind of ruin your tournament experience because not only did you not place, you didn't place because you made a mistake. And at least to me, like putting all that pressure on myself and like being able to clear, like say like, oh, I didn't prepare enough or I didn't know this deck well enough, just really hurts the experience. So I'd say like, even if you don't, if you play your own brew and you're happy with it and you're confident with it, And even if you feel like you're like the edge of the meta with this, as long as you're confident with the deck, I think you should run it. Even if you do bubble out, like at least you know that you did the best you could, and even though it wasn't the right meta call, it could have been, and that's something important to me. So number 2, know your matchup and your sides. So this is kind of with kind of the same thing with number 1, but when you were playing someone, time is a real thing. Like when you play like your friends or something, you're just playing to have a good time. You're not really thinking about time. You're just playing to gain stronger. But when you're in a tournament format, how much time left in the round is a really important thing. And let's say if you lose game 1, you are on the clock to get past game 2 and win that. So if you know what your sides are already, that's really important. You can just side very quickly. You don't have to like think a lot. And you don't have to put a lot of pressure into what to do. If you know a matchup and you know what you need to side into a matchup, and generally you should build your sideboard around matchups that you're expected to find, then having that be automatic and not having to think about that saves a lot of time and effort. That is really an important resource in a tournament setting. Like, there's so much. I can't stress how much fatigue you'll probably be by the end of the day, and just finding like ways to cut corners in ways of how much you have to think and stuff like that can really pay out in the long run. So you should know your matchups anyways. You should know all that. And something else is like generally, especially like storm decks, some people have to have a high, hard side against storm decks or something like that, right? And you can pretty much, if you've played against the deck long enough, you've kind of realized like there's a point of no return where you're like, okay, if he does this, this, and this, there's no way I can win. And there's no shame to conceding as soon as you see those 3 plays or something similar to that happen. If you realize at this point that there's no way that you can win, it is 100 times more valuable to do 2 things. One, to concede for 2 reasons. One, you probably haven't shown off a lot of your deck. Your opponent might not even know what you're running because they did Herudegarn Storm turn 2 and they just saw a couple of your combo cards, right? That's really powerful. 2, if you are going to lose game 1 anyways, you want to increase your odds on games 2 and 3, and you want to give yourself as much time as possible to do that. And there's no shame in cutting out, conceding game 1 if you think it will help you, give you an edge on game 2. And if you think the game 2 is going to be your game, then that is something really important. So know your side, know your matchups, and just know what your deck can do. If you can do that, you can use your resources and time at the max you can. So number 3, this one seems really, and this one might be controversial because there've been like some debates about it, but I'm just gonna say it, like, call a judge. If you have any issues ever, anytime, call a judge. They are supposed to be there to help you out. They are volunteering for this event to help this event run smoothly and make sure that no one feels cheated, and to make sure that everyone is treated fairly and evenly. So if you see a ruling that you don't think is true, or your opponent is doing some shady stuff, doesn't even matter. Like if your opponent did some shady stuff and you couldn't prove it, or you just felt off about it, and even if you win the game, like, still reporting your opponent or just telling a judge like, hey, X person, I can't really prove it, but it feels like they were doing something that was shady. Just having like people giving statements like that really help a case for later if they do get caught cheating. It's not just out of nowhere, right? It's not like, oh, it's just this one time I made this mistake. There can be like an evidence and supporting backup for someone who might not be adhering to the rules. So but yeah, just call a judge. And additionally, if you do call a judge, they give time extensions for you. So they should give time extensions. So there shouldn't be a worry of like, oh, you're wasting my time in the game time. That's not the case. And generically, like, if someone is confident with how the game is being played, they shouldn't have a reason why a judge shouldn't be called, right? If you're playing your card and you're like, this is how, this is how it's ruled 100%, and then your opponent wants to call a judge, and they start saying like, no, you don't have to call a judge. That's probably because they're immediately not confident in that ruling anymore, and they, if it could get potentially ruled not beneficial to them. So that's my advice for that. Don't be intimidated. Don't let your opponent talk you out of calling a judge. So, and number 4, this kind of all these are leading up to each other. I probably wrote this list when I was in a more awake state of mind. But know the time rules. Know how much time's left in the round. That's really important. And that goes back to like game 1. If game 1's going poorly and you want to give yourself the biggest amount of outs for game 2, there's no shame in conceding early. Side in the cards you need to. Start game 2 so you can get to game 3. That kind of mentality. That's really helpful, and I think a lot of people don't really do that as much as they really should. They feel like they have to win every game. They have to make every game to the end. And when there's such a time crunch, I don't think that's the case. Additionally, know how when time is hit, know what the end procedure is. I heard in LA, it was like as soon as time was called, everyone stops what they're doing and see how much life you have, and whoever has more life wins. I think that's kind of silly. I don't know exactly what the St. Louis ones are, which is I probably should, to be honest. But I know this is run by ARG instead of Core TCG, so the judges are probably different than for those two events. But know what happens when time calls, because if it is something like whoever has more life, you should probably play, instead of playing your Bardocks, you should play your 1-drop Gohans and, be more conservative about your life. But if it's like 3 turns, then you just, go for trying to win on turn 3 or whatever, right? So just know what those time rules are, and don't get sucker punched by getting hit by time and then being like, oh, I'm at 3 life, my opponent's at 4 life, they win. Shoot, right? That feels terrible. Don't let that happen. Make sure you know the rules. And number 5, probably like the least to have to do with the game, but probably the most important on the other side, is like just sleep and eat. Like that's like the number one thing. And I think it's just because, like, even though this is a mental sport or activity, you have to treat your body well. And I think that's really lost when people compare esports or, non-physical sports to real sports. It's like, oh, you don't have to be, really physical in good shape to play these things. But I'm a really big, I really believe that you have to be in shape in the sense of like your mind works better, you make your decisions better, you get to the conclusions faster. Like if you are feeling good and you're awake and you're well fed and you're eating well, then all these really help you in the end. So don't just like drive to St. Louis, get in at midnight, order a pizza, and then wake up at 7 a.m. Like all that's bad. Like and I know some people it's not really an option, and I know it's a time crunch, but you can only like play testing till 3 a.m. Don't do it. Just know what you playtest before the day of the event, or before the day before the event. That sounds weird to say. And just be confident. If you're confident in your deck, go to sleep. Make sure you get as much rest as you can. Plan your meals. Just even having like a bunch of snacks, because there will be a lot of downtime, because basically how card games work, even though the round is over, there's probably like a couple tables who are into overtime, time rolls, and then they have to put all the pairings back in, and they have to seed everything, and they have to make sure that everyone's following the rules. And there can, like, for as long as the round is, about half the time of the round afterwards is like just judges preparing the next round. So if round 1's an hour long, expect like a 30-minute wait before round 2 starts, and that's just from time being called. If you're playing like blue yellow Huracan Storm, and you just go 2-0 real quick in 20 minutes, it will easily be like an hour into your next match, and you just that fatigue of playing and then not playing and then playing and not playing is really a real thing. So just make sure that you're prepared for that. Make sure you're slept well, and that's it. So I think those are five. Those are five things that I want to say about that. Come harass me at St. Louis if you're there. I'll give you some packs. I'll take your picture for you. And I hope this will be a fun event. This is my first Dragon Ball Super event, and I've been really looking forward to it. So that's it from me, and I will see you guys next time.